What's going on, everybody? We got another police arrest reaction video to get into today. Let's check it out. We're going to dive right on into it and get some good understanding about what's going on and the legal things behind it and everything. And it's going to be a breakdown video. And we're diving into a tense encounter between a driver and the police, So, over a traffic stop in which the driver didn't want to provide the ID and everything we'll see as throughout the video. But I'll break down, what went wrong and everything like that and what you need to know about your rights during a traffic stop and how this could have been, handled differently. Let's get right on into it.
The reason we stopped you is you don't have a proper registration on your vehicle.
Because I don't operate on the common, sir.
For the law said you had to tell us it's operating for you. Can you roll this out a little bit? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
If you operate on a commerce, that's the only reason why you register the vehicle, sir.
No, the state of Florida says you have to have your vehicle registered to drive. Do you have a driver's license?
Then that would be a privilege, sir.
From that footage right there, it just looked like the guy didn't want to hear anything that the cop had to say, right? He kept his window up the whole time, you barely heard two words out of him, But here's the thing, y'all. The officer starts by, clearly stating the reason for the stop. So it's not like he didn't let the guy know what was going on. He let him know already, And the vehicle, the vehicle, he told him, lacks proper registration. And that's important to note that, registration is legally required in most states, right? Including Florida, in which that's where it happened at, to operate a vehicle on public roads, right? Like you need proper registration. Ignoring this can lead to fines or even worse. That's why you definitely don't want to ignore anything going on with the registration of a vehicle.
I'm not driving. I'm traveling.
Okay, do you have a driver's license?
I'm sorry, sir. I don't know why. Why do I need to provide you with my driver's license?
Because you're operating on a Florida road.
So what did I do illegally?
The Florida law says you have to have your vehicle registered and you have to be operating under a valid driver's license.
Did I commit a crime? Did I commit a crime?
Yes, by not having your vehicle registered.
Boy, that was something crazy to hear. Somebody they were driving their hands on the wheel. They're in the driver's seat. The truck is running, and they're in a parking lot. You don't think they were driving like that? It only makes sense that they were driving, right? What they doing in the driver's seat with their hand on the wheel while the car's running? If they wasn't driving it, you get what I'm saying? Who just let somebody do that? But here's the thing. This is where it gets tricky. Because he wants to say, that he's traveling and not driving. Well, that sounds kind of funny, right? That definitely sounds kind of funny. But here's the thing. The driver brings up that infamous, right to travel argument and everything like that. But unfortunately, it doesn't hold up in the court of law. States require licenses and registrations, for vehicles for public safety matters and reasons, and everything like that. And if you ever stopped by the police, remember that, failing to prevent a valid driver's license. Listen to this. Failing to prevent a valid driver's license. Listen, when, asked is a citable, like when you're asked to provide your driver's license by the cop, that's whenever you're supposed to give him your driver's license, right? Or he can actually give you a citable offense, like meaning a ticket and stuff like that, and even if you disagree with him, it's law. It's best to comply first and contest the stop later. If you thought the stop was wrong and everything like that, it's best to contest that later if necessary, probably in court or something.
All right, I need you to step out of the vehicle. All right, we're going to detain you.
For what?
Because you don't want to identify yourself, so we need to detain you. So step out of the vehicle.
Step out of the
So I
vehicle.
need you to step out of the vehicle.
Now you see how he's just not listening to the cop about stepping out of the vehicle whenever the cop is giving him lawful orders to step out of his vehicle because he's not providing them with the right information and not giving it to him. But you notice that all that does is escalate the whole situation, quickly, right? Like that's all that does is escalate, refusing to follow lawful orders. Think about that, such as stepping out of the car whenever the cop asks you to, often gives officers legal grounds for detainment. And even if you believe the stop is unjust, fighting it physically only makes things a whole lot worse. That's just a fact. If you're gonna do something like that, it's just gonna make something the matter way worse than what it already was, right? Uh, it's best to always, follow their instructions and everything like that, and comply physically, but assert, your rights verbally. Ask politely if you're being detained and why. That way it's not coming off so, like you're just refusing them.
He's not stepping on your center.
Step out of the vehicle. Yes. We're gonna break the window.
What do you want me to do?
We want you to step out of the vehicle
I'm not stepping out. For what reason?
because we're ordering you to step out of the vehicle.
No, like for what? What crime did I commit?
So even after the officers have already warned, the guy that if he does not step out of the vehicle, they're probably gonna have to break his window, right? I mean, what's the logical thing to do at that point? Like, would you rather the cops break a window, or would you rather deal with your consequences how you're supposed to deal with them like a mature adult and step out the car before any of that kind of stuff happens? But in reality, being a mature adult, you would have your driver license, insurance, registration, and all that up to date, and you would be able to give that to the cop on the spot, right? Like that's being a real mature adult doing those type of things. When the cop asks you for your information and stuff like that, you should give it to him, and have it all ready. But you know, at this point, think about this. At this point, the officers are left with no choice but to escalate their actions, right? They're taught to de-escalate, right? But they're left with no choice but to escalate, their actions at that point. And breaking a car window might seem kind of extreme, if they have to do that, but it's often the only option when someone refuses to get out the car and obey lawful orders. If they refusing that, to obey lawful orders, and locks themselves inside a vehicle, that's probably something that they would have to do, right? Is break the window to get to the person, right? It's the law. It's not like it's a civilian or something. It's the law doing that. They have the laws behind them to do that. But if you, like, not you, but I'm just saying, like, to avoid this situation entirely, remember that the side of the road is not the courtroom. Like, you got to be able to handle disputes legally and not physically.
Step out of the car.
Step out of the car. Break it. Step out now.
All these other extra charges, I don't know why would you put all those extra in there when it's unnecessary.
Not providing your ID is unnecessary.
So at least he got out of his truck, right? At least he got out and didn't have to have his window broken by the cops for him to get out, right? So they didn't even have to do that. Thankfully, he got out by himself. But in the end of it all, he still, did not follow lawful orders. He didn't, give them his ID and stuff like that, his driver license, and all those type of things. So unfortunately, it ends with the driver being, removed from the vehicle, and the outcome could have been completely different, with a lot more cooperation and communication with the officers that were there. But the thing is, if you're ever in a position like that, it's best to stay calm, follow orders, and use legal channels to address your grievances, later. That's what I'm trying to say right now. But if I had to say something else about this video, it's just that this situation, it escalated unnecessarily. You get what I'm saying? It really did, and it serves as a reminder to like us all about knowing your rights, but also understanding the importance of complying during a traffic stop. Of course, that's important, right? Because complying during a traffic stop is the difference between getting a ticket and getting arrested, right? Sometimes. But like what else? Like, I don't know. I would like y'all to drop y'all comments though. I really would drop your comments below and let me know what you thought about the situation, how you thought it unfolded and everything, what you would have done in that type of situation. Hope that y'all like this video and thank y'all for watching. I hope that y'all subscribe by now.